Hello, I'm Tomix. 2024 has been a really good year for gaming, especially indie gaming. So much so that instead of talking about it in my Best Media of the Year video like I usually do, alongside all my favorite movies, shows, and podcasts, I decided to split it off into its own separate video. So if you want to hear about that other stuff, that's in the other video. We're here to talk about games and what made 2024 so special for them, and how 2024's fun was formed by games of all kinds, from heavy anticipated big releases to tiny browser-based experiences. Free games, paid games, little indie games I wasn't expecting much from but ended up playing for days, and even 2 games from a genre I usually avoid, but were so good they made the list anyway. But first, before we really get into the brand new releases, let's start with 2 short updates about previously existing games that had meaningful enough updates to warrant being mentioned this year. If you've been to my channel before, you've probably already heard me go off about Satisfactory multiple times, and how it's one of the best games I've ever played, so I'll keep this short. It's finally out in full, leaving early access with all of its features. It's an absolutely incredible factory builder, and if you want more details about why it's so great, I have a whole video I did about it that I really recommend, but the short version is, generally gestures at everything. Wow! The only game to possibly rival Satisfactory is Factorio, who cemented the factory builder game as a genre to begin with, and it has a new expansion pack that dropped this year as well, with Factorio Space Age. I'd love to tell you more, but I don't own it just yet. I just wanted to make sure you know about it, since Factorio frickin' rocks! Don't wait for a sale on this one though, Factorio famously never goes on sale. Now we got those out of the way, let's cover some new games! Let's start with the revenge of what might be my favorite game ever, Frostpunk 2! In Frostpunk, you build steampunk cities meant to survive a sudden ice age that came out of nowhere, managing resources and making harsh decisions to make sure your city survives. And its new sequel, Frostpunk 2, takes it to a much grander scale, where instead of managing a small outpost, you are now managing a full-on metropolis, building sprawling, specialized districts instead of one building at a time, sometimes running multiple different towns and outposts on the same world map at the same time, and managing a population of thousands, which now form political parties whose satisfaction you have to balance to make sure they cooperate and help you get what you want, or at the very least, not get in your way. The best thing about Frostpunk was always how, unlike other games who many times just throw you in a blank level with maybe 1 or 2 objectives and kinda leave you alone till you accomplish it, Frostpunk has a carefully written and meticulously crafted campaign mode, weaving a series of difficult challenges that keep you constantly on your toes as things can change at any moment, all as a part of a planned out narrative that was specifically designed to stay interesting and challenging the whole way through. At first glance, Frostpunk 2 definitely lives up to its predecessor. I'm just mad I'm stuck because I still haven't been able to get past the tough obstacle I keep encountering. But when the game is this good, it definitely makes me want to come back and try again and again and again. Another wonderful survival city builder I played this year was Endzone, a post-apocalyptic city builder that was a whole lot more fun than I was expecting. Now, it's an older game, but I completed it from start to finish and had a blast doing so. It has a sequel that came out into early access this year, Endzone 2, but it's currently getting mixed reviews, so until it gets everything sorted out and leaves the early access with hopefully better results, why not play the first one? Older games with sequels tend to get good discounts, so it's good to throw on the old wishlist. Or if the post-apocalypse is a little too gloom and doom for you, how about something a little more lighthearted? Supermarket Together is probably the most surprising game of the year for me. What at first glance looks like someone's first attempt at slapping together a so-called game out of pre-made assets for their first year in beginner's game design class ended up shocking me with just how fun it was, especially with friends. Whether you're diligently trying to manage finances, keep everything stocked and customers happy, carefully designing every floor tile and lamp placement, or if you're running around like rabid raccoons hopped up on sugar, slapping the crap out of each other with brooms until it turns into a game of hockey and someone ends up in bad employee jail, Supermarket Together is shockingly well-rounded and fun on all accounts. This is made even more baffling due to the game's constant stream of regular free updates full of new content, or the fact that the game is completely free to begin with the game only being financially supported by a completely optional cosmetics and emotes pack, which is honestly such a nice business model. I love it. My friends and I had a blast playing this game, and we actually have a video of our wacky shenanigans in trying to manage our beloved supermarket Schlotzsqueeze, which we loved so much and spent so much time in even after recording the video that my friend Sparky even made me a uniform for Christmas. It was so good that now anytime we see a simple business sim made of awkward low-effort pre-made assets, we refer to it as a Schlotzsqueeze 'em up and rate it on a scale with Supermarket Together being the gold standard. The game can be played in single player, with friends, or on online lobbies. It's definitely the most don't judge a book by its cover game I've seen since Doki Doki Literature Club, and it is sure to be a blast. Next up, we have another free game. In fact, we have a lot of free games. In fact, let's just do an entire free game segment. And the first one that wowed me this year was Infinite Craft, which is a browser-based game that basically just lets you combine elements and see what you can make. You start with just earth, fire, water, and air, but only the avatar, master of all four elements, can combine them to create things like islands or volcanoes. Cut to 3 addictive hours of combinations later, and you've created Tokyo Disneyland, Mechagodzilla, Bronies, Sharknado, and Chlamydia. It's freely accessible online on a website called Neil's Fun, and beware, it's addictive as all hell. It's especially fun to see what combinations you are the first person to discover, or alternatively, wind up with something so incredibly specific and not get the first discovery prompt and be like, how? How am I not the first person to discover this? Total Columbus vibes. Another small game I've enjoyed is Cookard, which is a very different kind of restaurant management game, played entirely through cards. I wasn't sure if I'd find the concept appealing since I prefer, seeing the thing I'm building. I'm not huge on card games on the computer usually, but decided to try it anyway, and the more it went on, the more I loved it. My biggest issue with the game is actually that it ended. I really wanted more of it. Felt like I ran out of game right as I was getting into the swing of things. I really hope the developer takes the idea and runs with it further, but hey, it was really fun, and it's free, so might as well give it a try. The final game I loved playing this year is Ring Racers, a totally free Sonic racing fan game that can be modded to include all sorts of cartoon characters. Hell, I even made some for my own characters. I'm not a big racing games guy, but we keep coming back to this one because 1, it's fun, 2, it's free, 3, it's multiplayer, 4, it's got a ton of content but a simple gameplay loop, and 5, the mods keep it fun, wacky, and ridiculous. I even made a little Slot Squeeze Broom mod as one of the racers. This has become sort of the wind-down party game for me and my friends whenever we want something lighthearted and fun to do together. And with both a single-player campaign as well as online lobbies, both regular and modded, you're sure to get countless hours of fun out of this one. Assuming you can get past the tutorial phase. The game unfortunately has a bit of a hurdle early on that may trip you up getting into it, with a tutorial that takes way too long and controls that are not the standard ones you'd expect from a PC racing game, trying to feel more like a console game control. But once you get past that, and rest assured you do, the game is straightforward as heck and so freaking enjoyable. I mean, there is so much content for you to enjoy, especially for a free game. And you gotta love any game that lets you take Ed, Edd n Eddy, Team Fortress Heavy, Freddy Fazbear, that one PlayStation game I haven't thought about in 25 years, and Sans Undertale, and just pit them against each other complete with voice lines as modern Mario Kart-like wacky racers. This is a game fueled by love, and it's all the better for it. Now, while the free games have definitely been showing up for the fight this year, the paid games have also been turning up the heat. Kitchen Crisis was one of my most played games of the year, being a pixel restaurant tower defense game? A weird combination, but one that works really well. You've basically been abducted by aliens to run an Earth cuisine buffet in space, with droves of aliens rushing in to scarf down the best the planet has to offer, and you gotta make sure they all leave satisfied or else they'll have you for dinner. The result is a game that's very simple on one hand, but offers a huge amount of content with interestingly varying playstyles that change from level to level and from character to character. Select your characters, select your dishes, upgrade ingredients and appliances with power-ups, and make it through a long, varied campaign. I'm not a tower defense guy. The only one I've ever really played before is Bloons Tower Defense, who, to be fair, I love. And I'm not a completionist, but this game works so well that I've actually started trying to 100% it. I currently have 300 hours on it despite only getting it kinda recently. It's really good at letting you play at whatever level of commitment you feel like. You can play any combo of levels and characters for full variety, unlocking every achievement, or just powering through with the minimal effort needed to complete the campaign. Pitch perfect gameplay. It's what's for dinner. But if you want a little less deadly aliens in your cafe, how about computers instead? Internet Cafe Evolution is one you might not have heard of since it's a Chinese game, which I can't say I have a lot of experience with. The game offers 3 game modes. Story mode, which is weirdly enough a mix between a tycoon management game and a visual novel, which, credit where credit is due, is a combination I've never seen before and would never expect it to work, but I thoroughly enjoyed it because it shows the development of internet cafes and the culture around them through the years, starting with the 80s, back when they were mostly a utility for people who didn't have a computer at home, and progressing through the years to the more gaming-centered cafes of today, with it being very clear that there is a lot of love to the topic by the people who made this game. It was genuinely really charming and I enjoyed it a lot. Other than the visual novel mode, there's also challenges mode, which is what most games would call campaign mode, with unconnected levels serving you goals you have to meet to win, from making the ultimate writer's retreat to making an esports arena. But if you don't want all that, the game also has sandbox mode letting you build freely. I love how varied this game is, how much content it offers while not being too complicated to learn. I like seeing how something that's familiar to me, internet cafes, is viewed in the eyes of different cultures who I'm not as familiar with some cafes offering recording booths for singers or streamers, or massive arcade machines. My only big issue with the game, other than the fact I can't tell if the character portraits are AI art or not, is that outside of story mode, which is mostly fine, the game's translation work was iffy back when I played it, which sometimes made it hard to understand what's going on or how to do a thing. But the game's gotten a lot of updates since I last played it, and I did eventually figure out most things, so it's not an impossible hurdle to clear. And the game mechanic lying underneath all that would not shame any of its Western Tycoon game counterparts in its excellent mix of variety, simplicity, and complexity. Another game trying to do just that is one of the biggest releases of the year with Planet Coaster 2. Let's get it out of the way first. The launch for this game was rickety to say the least, with the game originally releasing in what most would agree was an unfinished state, with bugs, missing content, bad AI, awful waterslide physics, and overall feeling like it's still an early access game that's not quite ready to release, despite not having an early access title on it. There was a pretty big community uproar about it when it came out that only got worse when Frontier had the audacity to release a frankly overpriced paid DLC like a month after the game's release, while it was still very much broken. But then, to their credit, they took a page from the City Skylines 2 playbook of "so you botched the release of a highly anticipated sequel to a beloved franchise, this is how you unfuck it," and immediately got to work listening to the community, openly admitting to the flaws of the game, and promising to shift their focus more to free updates for a while instead of paid content, including completely overhauling systems that were so integral to the game that frankly I predicted they'd never be addressed because it would be too much trouble to actually fix them. To my surprise, I was wrong. Frontier took the time, overhauled the systems, and patched them out in free updates, sticking to their word and focusing more on free updates and fixes, with no more paid DLCs in sight for the near future. And honestly, release issues aside, I'm very impressed with how Frontier handled all of this. Many other big companies would not have publicly even admitted to having flaws in their game, choosing to maintain a cheerful, "everything's fine, nothing's on fire here" smile for the shareholders, while focusing on minor bug fixes as they churn out more and more paid content and the game's reviews plummet. But Frontier's already releasing updates and showing off future fixes to a lot of the community's biggest concerns and being very visible about their planned update schedule. It really seems they're genuinely listening to community and want to make their player base happy. For example, it seems that I was right when I predicted that the reason restaurants weren't in the game on release is because they were working on making them way better than they've ever been in either Planet Coaster or Planet Zoo. And 6 months later, while the game still has the occasional issue or missing feature, I'm still waiting on scenario editors Frontier, I'm happy to report that the game is more or less finally at the point where if it had released like this, I think most people would have been happy, and is now worth getting if you were holding off on it. Granted, there's still room to grow, bugs to fix, and they're still working on putting stuff into the game that has already existed for Planet Coaster 1 for years, but even with all the issues, I've still been genuinely enjoying the game's new features, such as building a park in franchise mode with other people, using the new decorating system to customize flat rides and coaster trains in ways we couldn't before to some amazing results, and now that water slides are finally fixed, really enjoying building a water park. The game may have had a rough start, but it's definitely on an upswing and getting notably better by the update. If you want to wait for missing features from the first game like hotels or scenario editor, you may still have to wait or grab this one on the Steam summer sale, but frankly the game is at long last pretty darn good and allows for so much creativity, albeit a little clunky at times. But as of April 2025, it's finally earned its place on my list of best games. But if all this AAA drama is a little too much for you and you just want something more on the light party game side, Jackbox has 2 new games that came out this year. First is Jackbox Survey Scramble, a fun lighthearted game with different game modes based on answers people gave when surveyed, where your job as players is typically to guess the top answers, the bottom answers, or anywhere in the middle depending on the game mode. And the other new release is the Jackbox Naughty Pack, which is a few Jackbox classic games with a more raunchy NSFW twist. I've not played that one myself, and it has less games in it than a typical party pack does, while costing the same, but the one time I did see people play it, they seemed to be having fun, and I figured some of you might like to know about it. I also want to shout out two smaller games. Potioncraft, a game I played for the first time in 2024, even though it's a bit older than that. It's a fun little game where you brew potions by using ingredients you buy or grow, with each ingredient moving your potion around a map of special effects in a different specific way, and having to combine them in just the right way to get your potion to do everything you need it to in just the way you want it. It's a simple but interesting gameplay loop and was rather enjoyable. Second is Technotopia, a city-building deck-builder game with an Art Deco style that I really loved until I realized the game is built in a way that makes failure meaningless. This one's a bit of a letdown, but it's still kind of addicting, so I'm putting it here anyway. Now, for all these management games, business sims, and lighthearted casual games on my list, it came as a big surprise to me that two games I really enjoyed this year were from a genre I typically stay away from: spooky games. The first, more straightforward one was Exit 8, a horror anomaly game where you're stuck in an endless subway corridor, repeating the same section over and over. The gameplay being, if everything is normal, you keep walking. If something isn't right or different in some way, you're supposed to turn back. Get it right 8 times in a row and you win the game. Sometimes something not being right is a strange stain on the ceiling that wasn't there before, or a light that's out of place. Sometimes it would be something like a red tidal wave coming at you out of nowhere. The point is, as soon as you spot it, turn around and leave. It's an impressive gameplay cycle, because sometimes you would be obsessing over every little detail in the posters, making sure you didn't miss any cartoon on the dentist ad having a second head or something, really paying attention to the details when something way more obvious comes at you, or vice versa. You'd be so terrified of something really obvious that you'd miss something small. It's a good way to catch you off guard. If you're a scaredy cat like me, I recommend playing it with friends. There are many other similar games with the same concept that came out this year, including a sequel, Platform 8, and as far as games with in-your-face horror elements go, this is a really fun one that never goes quite so crazy that it made squeamish little me not want to play it. I do recommend it. But if you want a different kind of spooky experience, one of my favorite games of the year requires a bit of backstory. There's an urban legend that's been growing around the internet. A campfire story that people from all over the world seem to be telling together. The Backrooms. Endless, winding liminal spaces that look familiar but seemingly make no sense, and lie just next to our reality, where the physics are broken and not everything is where it should be, as if reality itself is some video game level where if you find just the right spot you can accidentally end up on the outside of it looking in, either in a secret area the developers hid, not knowing if anyone will ever find it, or as an unfinished, empty, broken level where you weren't ever supposed to end up, and as a result everything looks weird, except in this case, the video game is our reality, with people trying to fathom these spaces that don't quite make sense. The Backrooms expands on this concept with tons of videos and games about the Backrooms online, from the quiet ones where you just explore an uneasy, massive, sprawling area that seems to defy logic, where the story and horror are told by nothing but empty architecture, to horror videos where supernatural creatures chase you through it, with reality itself bending in terrifying ways, and even comedy, leaning into the silly, unexpected aspects of exploring a space where logic and physics are straight up broken. There is a lot of lore and content about the Backrooms, and while I'd say that the rabbit hole of Backrooms videos were in themselves a huge part of 2024 for me, out of so much Backrooms media that came out this year, one stood out to me above all the rest. Pools. In pools, you find yourself suddenly in the pool rooms, my favorite part of Backrooms lore for the record, a giant nonsensical labyrinth of what seems like an infinite bizarre indoor water park that doesn't quite make sense, yet feels eerily familiar. It's a walking sim, there's no real puzzles to solve or enemies to defeat, you basically find yourself in a maze and walk around trying to find the exit, letting the strange environment unfold around you as you do, with each part of the maze having a completely different set piece that's fascinating in its own way. And I just have so much respect for this game. For a game where you basically don't do anything except explore, it managed to make me intrigued and curious or truly terrified to the point where I recoiled in my seat. It made me laugh out loud from the bottom of my gut because it was truly hilarious and goofy in all the right ways, and it made me feel blown away in amazement. All of this without a single character in the game and nobody talking to anyone. The designer managing to bring these feelings out with nothing but the power of level design, sound design, and creativity. And wow, is it creative! I always loved the Backrooms videos that were scary not because some monster was chasing you. It's pretty simple to have a monster be scary. I always loved the videos that managed to make you feel things with just the space you're in. Pools doesn't rely on cheap jump scares, which is not to say there aren't sudden moments that make your heart jump into your throat. There absolutely are. When an environment is as large and as empty as this, just something not being where it was a second ago is enough to make you panic a little. But the scares in this game are done so cleverly, beautifully, and sometimes gradually that they feel earned, or like you got something out of the experience. There's nothing suddenly popping on screen with a horrific screech and a gory image. Just a baffling environment that doesn't quite compute and keeps you on edge. And it's so beautiful or unique at times, it feels like an art exhibit. It is insane how much variety the developer managed to get by basically rearranging tiled wall, pool, light, slide, chair, and statue into so many different combinations that actually manage to get emotion out of you somehow. It doesn't feel like it should be possible with such basic building blocks, but they do anyway. How do they manage to do so many things with just these 5 items? What I love about Pools, and what I think sets it apart from other similar games like Dream Core or Liminal Core, is that kind of excellent creativity. The fact that it feels oddly realistic, with it feeling like you're actually walking around this space, and just overall a very high level of polish. The game has a free demo if you want to try it, which is basically just the first level out of 6, and it even has VR support. But if the concept of the pool room speaks to you at all, I would recommend just diving into this absolute masterpiece. It's probably the game that left the strongest impression on me in 2024. And that's it for 2024's best games. Be sure to check out whichever one's caught your eye and support your local indie devs. And I gotta say, it looks like 2025 is equally promising, with fun upcoming titles that already have trailers or playable demos, and a few excellent titles that are already out. But that's for next year's list. If you discover anything through this list that you enjoy or just enjoyed this video, please let me know with a like or a comment, not because of the algorithm. I just really like hearing what you think, and it helps motivate me to make more videos. Until next time, I've been Tomix, I currently am Tomix, and will hopefully continue to be Tomix, and I will see you in the next video. Until that comes out, why not check one of these? Bye!